through a guided walkthrough of a prezi presentation um, about one really important skill that we want to introduce as soon as possible in formal writing. This prezi actually covers two, but the first, what we're going to be covering is internalizing quotes. You can go through this slower if you want, but what we're going to do is do the first half. So, effective formal writing. Internalized quotes is a blending and a paraphrase, or a blending a paraphrase with a specific quoted portion of a text. And instead of describing it, we're just going to look at it. Um, for instance, this quote. This is the first half. Anything in the quotes is said by Andrew Carnegie, who was one of the richest men in the world when he built his steel empire back in the robber baron days. Anything that's not in the quote is me. So when we're writing, formal writing, and academic writing, we have to use information from sources to show expertise and to lend to the argument we're making, to back ourselves up, to inform the audience, etc. So there's careful ways to do that. And one of the things we want to do for the reader or grader or whatever is we want to make that stuff flow as much as possible so they do not lose our voice. It's they're going to give grades and be affected by your ability to make it easy to read and show that your knowledge of expertise in this sort of source material stands out. So at the end of Carnegie's life, tail end of it, he started giving away all his wealth, not all of it, but I mean, he gave away tons of money. And really, he and Nelson Rockefeller were one of the two richest people in the world, sort of competing for wealth. And then Carnegie just started giving it away, or Carnegie, as some people say. So here's the blended quote. Carnegie was truly the richest man in the world, yet he firmly believed that the man who dies rich dies disgraced. Now, these words are him explaining his own philanthropy. And I probably didn't have to put that comma in there. In fact, it might have been better if not, but that's not really the point. The point is that this is me and that's him. And we want those things to flow as cleanly as possible. And this is an MLA format, and where I got the quote straight from Carnegie or whatever, this is the tag that would show us information on the works cited list. But sometimes it's even best for us to include some of this information, this is the best example, in the sentence itself. And that informs the audience and informs the reader that you have a great deal of familiarity with this sort of research and what it means. What we don't want to do is lift an entire sentence from a quote that's good, but then just drop it into our paper and hope it flows, or introduce it in a weak fashion. So one of the things he did do was he built libraries to give information to people for free. He grew up really poor and sort of scrapped for knowledge, and he thought that was the best way to give back. So here's another example. He believed that a library outranks any other one thing that a community can do to benefit its people. So this came from a Kent book, or this is the last name of the author of a book, or I don't remember where I got this. That's the page number, and that's the author. We want to give simple tag information so that if we went to the works cited list, we could figure out which one. Oh, it's the Kent source or work, and it's from page 378. But as I read that, there was no break. These are my words, and these are a direct quote from Kent or whatever this author. So what we want to do is internalize this stuff as much as possible with flow. Now, sometimes it is important to have an entire quote that's an entire sentence, or stand on its own, or maybe, several lines of a speech. But we don't want to wear the reader out. And one other thing we don't want to do is, if a professor or anybody else is running this through SafeCheck or Turnitin.com or one of these unoriginality or plagiarism scanning digital programs, anything, even if you have the tag in there and don't plagiarize and put this information in there correctly and give them credit, the larger the unoriginal amount, if they see this quote and turn it in, and those programs are pretty powerful, the more they'll see that isn't you, it just comes up as a quick number and a quick reference as soon as you turn it in, that every professor that's going to grade that uses SafeCheck or those programs is going to see. So you don't want to look at even this one. It's not a very good sentence. This isn't my best or anything like that. Only 5 words are mine. And I could have trimmed this down a little bit better. This one, the first one, was a little bit more clean. So the purpose of this is it releases the writer to only quote a specific portion of the text while giving the writer, which is you, opportunity to paraphrase a large contextual meaning. That makes the reading more rich. So we need to take care of the author. We got to introduce the author from the source work within the sentence itself. Not always, but when it's smooth to do it. No comment is necessary. Introduce the quoted phrase. Like this is the other end of the example. Whoever Margaret Reardon is said that economy cars are better equipped to handle accidents than smaller cars of the past. Those are her words. And we're talking about car accidents. This isn't the most delicate, awesome, poetic turn of the phrase ever spoken by human beings. It's not Shakespeare. But she's willing to say this about car accidents in new cars that are not as expensive. So that's why I put that in quotes. That's the best way she could say it. It was the most careful way she could say it. So I don't want to misquote her, as if this was some sort of legal brief. But if we move on to other things, this example especially... Oh, I'm sorry. You don't have to restate the author's name in the parentheses if you attribute it in the text. So you don't have, like I said, you don't have to put it in the MLA tag or APA tag and all that stuff. So I'm just going to read this first part. This is an author writing about his father's battle with alcohol. In his essay about his father's alcoholism, Scott Russell Sanders states that his father, and you read the rest. This is so well written. This is so well written. It would be a sin to paraphrase this. It's so good. And who would I be to even, try to summarize this and paraphrase? But I also don't want it to dominate my source material. I wanted to get to this magic right here. And it is so painfully honest. His father drank as a gut-punched boxer gasps for breath, as a starving dog gobbles food compulsively, secretly, in pain and trembling. Even how he phrases the cadence of those words, they're phrases and descriptions that you can't not see. So, as far as the MLA goes, or any citations, that's page 295 of this essay that clearly the reader knows is an attribution to this guy. So, what we want to do is when we're reading source material and finding things, we want to take it all in, but really look for whatever the turn of the phrase is that's truly excellent. If you're playing around text manipulation, you want to maybe, whatever the phrase is that you think is really, really well written, bold it, and give yourself the right to work around that bolded phrase or that, whatever it is, and paraphrase an introduction or some sort of context, and then just make it work grammatically. Now, sometimes you may have to change a pronoun, verb tense, or some initial capital letter to make it fit grammatically. You are allowed to do that. So this is Nancy Mears. Looking back on her life with multiple sclerosis, Nancy Mears declares that she was never a beautiful woman, and for that reason she has spent most of her life suffering from the shame of falling short of an unattainable standard. You notice this always, if you end a quote in MLA, it's quotes, parentheses, period. Now, I could have left this. Clearly she didn't say she was talking about herself. So the she was an I. I was never a beautiful woman. For that reason, I have spent most of my life. So I didn't have to change that, but it does work. If you have to specifically use these brackets, not parentheses, to show that you are inserting or changing words reasonably and responsibly, so that you're not changing the meaning of what the original source said. Just imagine the author looking over your shoulder, going, "I worked hard on what I wrote there. Don't mess with it." And just look, I'm just going to change the pronoun or whatever it is we're going to do, the verb context or whatever. Also, these ellipses means I remove something from here. And if I can, I think it was something she said about her sister, something, I can't remember exactly. But if this transition without that text still makes sense, I'm allowed to remove it. And that's why we give this the citation, is so that if somebody wants to check this, they're allowed to go back, look, and see, okay, they didn't really tamper with the meaning, but they really were just omitting something that didn't directly go to the point they're trying to make. So, also, this looks pretty crafty. This looks like a skilled writer. That you can make it flow, and this is, looking back in her life, this is a strong introduction, and it's not even really, I mean, it doesn't even function as an introduction. It all works as a sentence. But the fact that you show dexterity enough to manipulate some others' words into what you want it to do and still hold the integrity of the text is pretty powerful. So the more we go through this, right here, you can cut out ellipses if it's not absolutely needed to prove your point. Here's the ellipses from the original text. So this one is a little bit too long. I probably could have chopped out more. And this is a little bit too much of a full sentence for what we're wanting. But still, you can read this on your own, pause it if you want, just about making kids go to school or not, whether or not that's a good idea. I could, lowercase that a so it would fit. Or you could bracket a lowercase a to show that we were just making it flow, because that is the beginning of his sentence. Not to get too picky about this stuff. That's not the important thing. Now, this is a practice. Walk through this on your own. You have the link to this presentation, but we want to get to that small part of the phrase that we think is most important, and then introduce around it. And that's hard to do on its own as an assignment, because it's really hard to just start in the, because this is something to be in the middle of a paragraph. So it's tough to think, well, I don't have a topic sentence. I'm not introducing what I'm talking about. I know, I get it. But, just like the examples I gave, it doesn't matter what you didn't have to know what paper I was writing or what my point was to see the how the introduction works. And the MLA citation still has to remain intact. The thing we do after that is the complex commentary. So the assignment is, I would like you to find some, not necessarily scholarly writing, or academic writing, but some serious journalism about something about which you care. And it can be, college football. It can be anything, as long as you find source material that has some depth to it and care of writing. If you want to talk about the role politics is playing in sports or something like that, take something like sports and then elevate it. And then find something that somebody says, just one thing, just one phrase, and I want you to build a sentence kind of like that. Not that one. That one stinks. Let's see. Yeah. This is the goal. Find something that is such an extraordinary description of something. So politics, culture, a biography about somebody, where you investigate something in their past or something. All we want to do is practice finding some nugget about something, and that's why it's something you care about, because I want you to do research you like. And just one sentence that blends your introduction and your words and then theirs. Try to make it grammatically correct, and please don't make their quote an entire sentence. The entire sentence is you and them. And that way it's just like a DJ sampling. They're just sort of stepping in, and it's their words like a guest speaker. It's a powerful, powerful way to write. So that's what I'd like to do. It's an assignment. Do your best. Don't make perfect the enemy of the good. Just make it good. And we'll work on shaping it up later and doing commentary. So 10 points. We're shooting for that.